Hey everybody, wanted to record a video. Brelshaza has recently come out in a North American version, and my group was able to get through gates 1 through 4. So today I wanted to make a video about some of the mechanics that I had difficulty doing for gate 4, and the hope is to give people who are progressing gate 4, or maybe you've done it before and you just wanted a little bit of clarity for some of the movesets, some of the things that I found difficult while progressing, the solutions that I came up with, and hopefully it'll help you guys kind of clean up the run and get you the clear if you're just that far away from it. Just that little bit away from clearing the raid. So let's jump right in. I won't really be going through these mechanics in any particular order. I'm just going to be talking about the ones that are notable to me as I find them in the VODs. So one of the first mechanics that I want to talk about is the feet icons, as I like to call them. So if we pause right here, if we look on this VOD, right underneath my character's feet, you can see that various players have like these icons under them. And usually, depending on the cube's mode, so this is the star mode, it's like the ultimate version, right? It does multiple mechanics. But depending on the mode, this will do different effects. By and large, you want to make sure that you're putting these away from the party. And in red mode, I believe it is, it shoots out the laser. In this mode, it does a mix of all the possibilities. So you can see how this resolves here. The first thing I want you guys to notice is it'll leave an AoE where you're standing, so you need to keep moving to avoid this. So you see how I get hit by this AoE here. And then the second thing I want you to notice is a player next to me, when she gets this mark under her feet, she gets the laser that goes in the direction that she's pointing. And it's really, really important that you make sure these are at the edge of the map and away, because these lasers actually linger. If you notice, you can barely see this explosion down here. It keeps pulsing explosions. And this can really mess up a raid if you're not aware that that can happen. So in general, not such a big deal, but it does cause some wipes if you're not careful with it. Make sure that you're cleaning up the feet icon appropriately. Okay, this was a mechanic that I think was really big, is these pizza slices. Now, occasionally in the fight, the cube will do pizza slices that progress, as you guys can see on the VOD. So I'm going to rewind it a little bit. So in order to avoid these, this is where the pizza and the donuts are happening at the same time. Generally, I would say react to the donuts, so react to the rings under your feet, and then know the pattern of the pizza slices, okay? So that's like the cone AoEs that are coming out from the center of the boss. So usually when this happens, if you see that these pizza slices are coming out in this like 4-directional pattern, it can be very difficult to dodge because at the end, there's almost no safe spots, okay? So all you really need to know to avoid this is to see how this progresses, okay? So we see that it's 4 directions, right? AoE here, AoE here, AoE here, and AoE up there. And then the second time, you see how they group up into 3, okay? And then by the time you see the second one, you should know for sure what pattern you're going into, okay? The best way to make sure that you know exactly where you need to stand at the end is just to follow this block of pizza slices, okay? So you see that there's this group of 3 pizza slices, and then I just know that the next one will have 1 more pizza slice added onto this, and then the safe spot is going to be 1 pizza slice over here, okay? So let's see this play out. That explodes, and now you can see as these pizza slices are growing, you see exactly where I'm standing is 1 away from the previous spot, right? And so I have a safe spot right there. You see all the AoEs exploding. And there's a safe spot on the other side of the boss as well. So it's kind of, there's only really 2 safe spots at the end. This catches a lot of people, and it won't necessarily kill you instantly, but it'll do a lot of damage. It'll knock you into the debuff zone, and you'll stack up 1 more. If you're high on stacks, it could kill you as well. So I think a lot of people have trouble with this move. Just remember, I'm going to rewind it 1 more time. Just follow the AoE patterns, okay? So we see that it's 4 directions. And now we can look for the 3. We go to the edge of the 3, and we go 1 more. And this is a safe spot, okay? There's 4 directions. 3 slices here, so we know that we need to go towards the safe spot here, and we know that there's going to be 1 more pizza slice, so we go 1 more over into the safe spot. Okay? That's how you avoid that. Okay, next on the list is the memory jail. Memory jail is something that I think takes some getting used to, and it took a while for myself. It took a while for me to kind of like be able to hone in on where the safe spots were, and sometimes even after the experience that I had playing, it can be easy to miss sometimes. So having your team help is really important. So you can see it's already started, and there's not much. Honestly, there's not much of a tell, right? The cube just finished this explosion, and it just goes right into memory. And so you kind of need to like instantly react, and it can be really easy to miss the first safe spot. The good thing is you should know 2 things about this situation, okay? One is the next safe spot will always, always, always be adjacent to the previous one, okay? So what does that mean? Let's say this happens, and I miss the fact that the first safe spot is on the left half of the map, okay? Let's say I miss this cut. I see the second cut is on the other side, right? And I can kind of instinctively know, okay, if the first safe spot has to be adjacent to the second spot, in my head, did I notice a lot more blue on my right side or on my left side, right? Because that means the safe spot can only be on this right side here, adjacent to the safe spot, or it can only be adjacent to this left side safe spot, right? And if you take a look at the picture on the previous frame, so here's how it flashed, right? I can kind of like remember that like, oh, it didn't feel very comfortable to be on the right side. So like the good guess is that the first safe spot was on the left side here, okay? So that's number 1. If you miss the first safe spot, that's something that you can do. My recommendation is you have your raid ping the first safe spot, because people are going to be spread out. If you see the first safe spot, give it a ping. That's my recommendation. The faster you do that, the faster your team can kind of like trust where the ping is, and then they can just focus on the rest of the mechanic. So there's a second step here, okay? Identifying the first safe spot, have your raid members ping it, and then go to that first safe spot. And the second thing is just to remember directions. This is the way that I like to remember it, okay? So if we look at how this mechanic plays out, I'm going to pretend like I'm doing this raid, right? Here's the mechanic. So what I'm going to say is left, right. Okay, so what that means is from the safe spot that we stand at, we go to the left side first, right? And then we run to the left, and then after that resolves, we run back over to the right. You can see that we failed this mechanic in this case because we're still trying to figure it out. But based on the way that the safe spots happen, if you give these directions, it's much easier than trying to remember areas. Just remember, you got to go left first, and then you got to go right. And because the safe spots are always like adjacent to where you started, you won't fail if you keep to these criteria, okay? Now let's rewind it and see where the safe spots end up. So here it flashes, and then we go left, right. One of the other things too is because we know it's left, right, for this initial safe spot, if you cheat to the left, this will help you a lot. And this was the key mistake in this particular run for myself, is because I actually don't think I saw the safe spots in this instance since we were progressing it. But in future runs, what I would have done is say left, right. And so we would walk to the left here at this edge. The instant this resolves, we would go left. And then we would cheat to the right of that safe spot. The instant the second jail resolves, we would go to the right. So you see here, this is the second safe spot. You should be standing at this side of the safe spot, so that you can go to the last safe spot easily, right? So the last safe spot should be right of that area, and it is. So you don't have to move very far if you know which direction you're heading. That's my biggest recommendation. Some things that I would say about this is if you know you're getting trapped, try to stay away from the rest of the party. It's kind of like let yourself be jailed. There's a lot of range on things like flame grenade, which I think is your best friend. If you have at least 1 or 2 people in your raid with a flame grenade, this is probably the best way to save them from getting lasered after this mechanic resolves. Because if you get trapped, the cube will pick somebody. I feel like it tends to pick the person who gets trapped first, but it will pick them and it'll shoot a laser at them. Some players can actually survive this, like my artillerist. And so that also helps you reduce your risk because maybe you won't die from getting lasered. Okay, this commonly happens with supports as well. Okay, here's another super dangerous mechanic that can be very heartbreaking because it can happen close to the end of the raid. And when this cube is in star mode, okay, this cube is now in mega mode where it just does a whole bunch of moves. Its donut pizza pattern gets really, really crazy, okay? Even at this point, I don't really dodge it that well. But there's two things that I think will help you. Well, there's three things. There's two things primarily that will help you understand what's going on. First off, when you see these safe spots happen, we kind of know middle, close, and then far, right? These are the safe spots for the donuts. Now, the big thing not to mess up about this mechanic is the pizza slices and the donuts under your feet are offset, okay? So remember, when we saw these safe spots, it tells us where the safe spots are. Middle, close, far. However, the first mechanic that happens is actually the pizza cuts. And these pizza cuts are as simple as they're just alternating, okay? So you constantly have to just go into the explosion, right? So this time, I'm in the safe spot here, and there's a dangerous spot here. When it explodes, it's just gonna flop, okay? Now you notice that there's no donut AoE yet, right? The markers for the donut AoE only just now appears, okay? So this is what I mean by the pizza slices are offset from the donut AoEs, okay? So we know, again, it's middle, close, far. I'm gonna get bopped in this video because this mechanic is really confusing, at least to me, especially in progression. But just see how these things resolve and what pattern they resolve in, okay? So again, the pizzas have alternated, right? You can see that now this one is the one that's exploding, and this one's safe, and then on the next pizza slice, they'll be flipped over. So this one will be safe on the next one, and the one next to me will be exploding, okay? So now, the first donut has exploded, so the next donut safe spot is close, right? So if I wanted to avoid the next donut, I would need to go close. Again, notice, like I said, the pizza slices have reversed, and now the next donut safe spot is just happening. And remember, the pizza slices just keep reversing, they keep alternating, so you need to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, okay, while doing the ring dodging. And then the outside is the last safe spot. The third thing that I want to mention, to be honest, I feel like the best way to handle this mechanic, you dodge this first ring, you dodge this second one, and then you just time stop. That's what I would recommend that you do. Now here I got hit, so I could do it, but I should time stop here. And I feel like that's one of the safest ways if you're not confident, if you don't know what's going on, if you don't want to take a risk, just time stop at this point. It's probably the best idea. Okay, the next move that I want to cover is also in the star mode. And this one caught me out a lot and ended up causing a wipe specifically in this particular run. But it's the blue dot pizza AoEs, okay? So this is what this looks like. You may be familiar with this in different modes. But the biggest difference is when the cube is in star mode, it overlays two different AoEs that can be really hard to see where the safe spot is. So, number one, you can see that there's a safe spot at around where I'm standing, right? But this is only for the first wave. The big thing about in star mode is after the first wave, there will be a second wave already spawning on top of it, okay? You can see that there's a second wave of blue dots spawning already. So how do you avoid this? I end up time stopping it and then that kills me. But the best way to avoid this, to be honest, is to look at the slices of the two sides. Okay, so notice that there's a safe spot. It's dangerous on my left, dangerous on my right. And I want to be thinking about, like, philosophically, I want to be going into the first explosion, okay? The problem is both sides are not equal. So you'll notice that right now, after this explosion is happening, I need to be paying attention. I need to be really, really looking. So you'll notice that there are blue triangles that are going to the left. There aren't blue triangle or blue diamonds, sorry. There are blue diamonds that are going to the left, but not blue diamonds that are going to the right. So my reaction should be jumping into this right side explosion. Now, the other way that I could do it is if I just on reaction, spacebar to my left side and just started running for it, I would eventually make it to the safe spot on the other side because it's only like 3 diamonds wide. Do you see this? So if I had just committed to jumping into the explosion, so right after the explosion happens, spacebar in that direction, I would have made it to this safe spot here, okay? But evidently, from where I was standing, the safe spot was much closer on the right side, okay? So, biggest recommendations from me is to, one, in the first stage, find the safe spot for this first pizza AoE, which is where I'm standing right now, and then think about jumping into the explosion right after it resolves and finding the short side of it, okay? So here it resolves, and you can already kind of see that these diamonds are going in this way, right? It's heading left, so at this point, I should be thinking out spacebarring to my right. And that's how you should avoid it. If you want to time stop, don't time stop where I did, time stop early. I would recommend that if you wanted to time stop this, you would time stop it around here. I would time stop it a little bit before this frame, because if you time stop it where I did, then the next move comes out, and then you can get hit, okay? Not good. Really not good. Very disappointing. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to mention that isn't the craziest thing, but it's useful to have some kind of strategies for this, and it's in yellow mode. Sometimes it'll do a safe spot pizza pattern. So here you see it does like a lot of pizza cuts, and then it fills the room with a bunch of AoEs, right? And you need to find where the safe zone is. So in this case, it's to my left, behind the wall. So there's a few things to know about this. Obviously, with a wall, you need to use debuff immunity to go through it. That basically means you need to use your spacebar to go through the wall, otherwise you'll get feared. My recommendation is if you are for some reason caught without your spacebar and you're having to do this mechanic, just time stop it. It's really, you can really add up a lot of stacks if you're careless with how you resolve this mechanic. But give it a time stop. If you can't get across, don't worry. Your support might be able to Rhapsody as well. Don't freak out. You can add a lot of stacks to the cube. If everybody freaks out and they all just get trapped in the wall and then they maybe still take the damage anyways, it can get really bad. Okay, let's talk about something else that can get really, really dangerous, and that's bullet hell. So the first thing that you should know about this bullet hell mechanic is that these lasers that you see that are appearing on the screen, these lasers don't actually hit you, okay? Don't get mistaken about what these lasers are doing. When they turn red, the lasers don't actually hit you, okay? What the red lasers mean is just that it's locked into that direction. And what actually happens is that's where the orbs that will shoot out, that's the direction that they'll go in. So you can see on this left side already, these orbs are coming out, right? You can see that another set locked in, and these orbs spawn in this direction, okay? After a while, these orbs will speed up, and it'll kind of like shoot across the map really quickly. Now, the best way you can handle this, as best you can, sometimes you're not going to be able to do this, is don't put any of the lasers through the middle of the boss if you can. So when bullet hell happens, I really, really, really recommend that everybody run to the edge of the map. This reduces the chances of lasers going through the middle. Okay, so that's number one. This will really help because these orbs can paralyze you, and then it can just catch you long enough that you get hit by the meteors, and you're very liable to get wombo comboed while that happens, okay? So that's number one. Thing number two about bullet hell is you need to keep moving, okay? This is the best way to defend yourself in bullet hell, is just to keep moving, because when it's happening, under your feet, some very fast meteors will spawn, and this has push on it, okay? It'll knock you down, you see that? Now keep moving, and there was another one that spawned under my feet, okay? So as long as you're continuously moving, you have a pretty good chance of avoiding getting knocked into the air and then wombo comboed. So when it's just bullet hell on its own, it's not the worst. You can definitely still die. I guess the last thing that I should say about this bullet hell mechanic is for the slow meteors, right? You notice that there's two AoEs here with slow meteors. Their AoEs are a little bit bigger than you think they would be. I would not recommend standing in between them. It's not a safe spot. You will get hit. I would recommend standing away from them in front or going to the large gap, okay? Don't ever try to stand in between two of them close by. Okay, where bullet hell gets really dangerous is in yellow mode, okay? So in this VOD right here, you can see that we're in yellow mode right now. This is where bullet hell can really, really destroy you by wombo combo, because there's so little space and there's so much space taken up by AoEs, okay? So when this happens, again, a lot of it is the same thing. There's just no lasers targeting you, okay? You want to keep moving to avoid the fast meteors, so you'll see under players' feet right there, you see there are fast meteors that spawn there. Now, it's a little bit hard to see because I'm on Reaper and I'm jumping around, but I Nightmare, and there's the fast AoE under my feet, And then the other thing is you avoid the big meteors as well. And I would say don't be afraid to time stop this stuff because it will hurt you, okay? If you need to time stop it, to be honest, I think it's worth it because I can't tell you how many times people have died because they've just been wombo comboed into the debuff zone and they're just lying there picking up debuffs, or they've been hit into a wall and stunned. And especially if you get hit into the wall in a particular way, there is a chance, as you can see, like right next to the wall, there's just a line of orbs. There's a chance that you can get CC'd on the wall and these orbs are just constantly hitting you, okay? Really, really bad stuff. Play it safe. Time stop if you need. Sometimes, if you have like a gun lancer or something like that, or a destroyer, sometimes it can just stand in the way of the orbs and take it for you, which is really nice. But just know that this is one of the worst situations that can have happen for a bullet hell. Okay, let's quickly talk about the major wipe mechanics. The number one thing that will help you for these major wipe mechanics is to know the health level that they will happen at, okay? You need to be prepared before the wipe mechanic happens so that once the mechanic starts, you know exactly where to go and you can respond fast and you can take care of the mechanics quickly. This is most notable for the yellow mode major mechanic because the orb destroyers need to kill their orb as fast as they can and give the players the most time to stagger the boss. We went through so many wipes because this was slow. So in saying that, when do these major mechanics happen? Just remember 170 health bars is the first one, 120 health bars is the second one, and then 60 health bars is the last one. As long as you can remember these numbers and you know, okay, we're in yellow mode and 170 is coming, when that wipe mechanic happens, we're going blue or we're going green or whichever side you're going to go to, okay? Just remember that. So let's look at yellow first, okay? There are a few things that will really help you do this well. The orb destroyer needs to get there fast, okay? So in this case, if you're an Arcana, here's one recommendation that I might make to you. I would recommend that you use Spiral Edge into Call of Destiny because one of the things about grabbing the orb in yellow mechanic, and I'm going to show this here in the VOD even though I'm playing Reaper, is that there's going to be an AoE pop. You see that? This AoE pop is a thing that decides who gets the buff, and it's the closest person to the orb, okay? So you really need to make sure that you're the closest because if you have a teammate that's standing around here and they're closer than you, they're going to be the one that gets the protection, and then you're going to need to on the fly switch up your roles, especially if you don't notice the fact that this has happened, okay? Make sure you're really close to the orb when it pops, and then make sure you kill it fast. This is why I recommend Arcana use Spiral Edge and Call of Destiny, because Scratch Dealer might push you away. If you use 2 Spiral Edges, you use 1 to get there, and then your second one kind of puts you off and you have to run back. So I'd recommend just use 1 Spiral Edge to get there and make it hit its 2 stacks. Call of Destiny for the 2 stacks, and then use Secret Garden or whatever to break it, okay? That's what I would recommend for Arcana. Now for Reaper, in this case, it worked out pretty well for me because I was able to prep my meter, I was able to roll in the direction, right? I got up really close with the spacebar, and then I could use a Rage Spear in the Persona mode to kill it. So it worked out really well in this case for my Reaper. However, time is of the essence, okay, in this case. If you're trying to build up your meter and then break the orb, that's going to take a long time if you went into this with empty meter, especially if you didn't have Shadow Storm. The one thing that I want you guys to know is it's okay to use your red skills without being in Persona mode. So you can use things like Glowing Brand, Dance of Fury, even Rage Spear without your Persona mode. You don't need full meter, just use them raw and you'll be fine. Just know that once the thing pops, you need to be the closest, and once you get the protection, you need to get out of there, okay? Because very soon after, the yellow orb is going to spawn, and you don't want to be eating that in the wrong spot, and you don't want to be taking away a yellow barrier for your teammates, okay? Okay, really quickly, for red mode major mechanic, there's not much to be said about this one. One of the things I would recommend is you aggressively, as a raid, everybody on the raid can aggressively look for the front of the boss when the red mode mechanic starts and get into that safe zone, okay? That's probably the easiest way that you can wipe, is that when the mechanic starts, nobody goes into that safe zone in the front fast enough, and then the boss wipes you, okay? So that's number one. Number two, overall this mechanic is pretty easy, but I feel like the most common way for a raid team to wipe is people aren't aggressively looking for these yellow orbs, grabbing them and going into the safe zone, especially after like the second or the third stagger or whatever. right? When there's only a few people left, especially if you're somebody like if you have somebody with high stagger in your group that's just kind of assuming that they're going to stay there to the end. I would say, especially after the last stagger, just aggressively look for those yellow orbs, because sometimes if your entire raid, if there's like 3 or 4 people left outside and they're all thinking like, oh, somebody else is going to get the orb and go in, that's probably the easiest way to cause a wipe. In general, it shouldn't be an issue. We found the red major mechanic to be the easiest to handle, but just don't get complacent, okay? Just aggressively look for those orbs after you stagger it and then get into the safe spot, even if you're a high stagger character. The stagger check shouldn't be that big of an issue, and you really don't want to look stupid by not picking up the orb and going in when it's just there for taking, okay? Okay, lastly, for blue mode. Blue mode is also really, really easy. The only thing that you really, really need to pay attention to for blue mode, one, is know where you need to go before it happens, okay? So the advice that I gave you, knowing 170, 120, 60, these are when the major mechanics are going to happen, and then looking for your place that you need to go before it happens. This is really, really, really important. And then I would say that the last thing that you need to make sure that you absolutely do is that you're close to the cube when you stagger it, otherwise you won't get the shield. And not just that you're close to the cube, but I want you to notice the delay, okay? We've staggered it, and it hasn't given us the buff immediately, so make sure you stick around and you get this buff here, okay? Until you see this, do not leave. People have died because they have left before this pop actually happened. They don't get the buff, and they're sitting there waiting to die, okay? So, biggest thing about blue, stay close to the cube after you stagger it, and make sure you get the yellow shield, okay? So that's about all that I noticed for Gate 4 that seemed to give us the biggest problems and cause the most consistent amount of wipes. Let me know if this was helpful. If you guys need guides to actually read, the max roll guide is obviously really, really good. There are content creators like Memorizer and ATK that have made guides that you can watch to get a larger picture overview of how to do these mechanics. I just wanted to give you guys some input for some of the practical situations that came up while I was doing the raid, and some helpful things to think about while you're completing the mechanics, and maybe that'll give you guys the edge to be able to consistently complete these mechanics and then pass the raid. So let me know what your experience raiding Brelshaza was like for this first week. Was it chaotic? Was it fun? Which gates were your favorite? And of course, let me know if you found the portrayal of these mechanics helpful. Okay, thanks guys.